This episode covers issues of domestic violence. If you or someone you know needs help, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. You can also contact them by texting START to 88788 or at thehotline.org. Help is available. You know the Beach Boys song, Don't Worry Baby?
Yeah, totally.
Very popular song, is a response to this song.
They used to do that, man.
Yeah.
Now all we get is the Kendrick Drake battle.
Right. It's in my brain. Okay, here we go.
Can't unhear it.
This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum.
Welcome to Backwards Beats. I'm Carl Carter Fansteel.
Dan Woodard.
And this is the podcast where we review Rolling Stone's top 500 albums in backwards order. This would be our 7th episode, meaning that this would be album 494 on their list, published in 2023.
Did you just do math on a music podcast?
Dude, it took everything I had, as you well know. You can see my face.
Yeah.
I look
I can
like
smell
I'm
the smoke.
wilting.
Yeah.
Exactly. Ugh, brutal, dude. We're trying to sell the house. And so I'm doing all the little things no one wants to do, like Mr. Clean erase walls and pack things up. And you're like, the hardest part of packing things up is not physically packing things up, but like deciding why shouldn't I just like throw this out.
Yeah. You have a lot of stuff too.
You know, I feel like we move every 5 years, and I always get rid of the stuff, and you just keep acquiring more stuff. Now, the hardest part of this entire endeavor will be this studio.
Yeah.
And wherever we move this studio to.
Yeah. How many guitars in this studio?
In this one, easily 24, another dozen in the house.
Right.
The guitars don't worry me. It's the little stuff. It's like the cables and the adapters and remembering exactly how I wired the whole studio.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to get bad.
Take pictures.
Yeah, I guess I need to. I'll guilt you into helping me pack this stuff up when the time comes. I'm at the age where you pay for movers, of course, but like getting drums and cymbals and cases and things like that, you look quite capable. You look like you bend over further than I do without like back breaking because you actually work out. But that's where my mind is. How are you?
Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling off mic, my son who has a radio show.
What is that?
My son who has a radio show.
What radio show?
College show.
You got to bump it.
Yeah, I'll bump it. It's the Haunted Horror Hour on WSUM, which is every Saturday at 6 Central.
Ooh, Central time.
That's right. I have to remember because of when I listen to it, so I do the math. And he asked if I would record and write a music bed. And you know me well enough to know that I'm going to overdo it.
Yes.
Right. So I've already recorded 4 sketches. Right.
I'm not surprised at all.
And then I'm like, well, actually, what do you want? You know?
Yeah.
And so we had the conversation about that. So I've been kind of nerding out there for a little bit and having a little bit of fun writing some bed music for a horror podcast where they mostly crack jokes.
Good. That's the only kind of horror content I can get into.
Yeah.
I'm not good with jump scares. I don't geek out on the whole thing. So a little humor goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything that gets you off of the adding tasks into Trello front too for a little bit so you can be a musician rather than a programmer.
I think that was a burn, but we'll say.
It was a good one. Dan has done such an amazing job inside of this podcast, organizing it. We have all sorts of technology. I'm not quite sure how it is being used, but I know it's really impressive. And I'm pretty sure AI works for us currently. Yeah?
A little bit. A little bit.
A little.
Yeah.
And we got a sweet new logo. So if you get a chance after hearing this, peep over at the thumbnail as you listen. That was designed by our one and only Dan Woodard as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. That was easier, though, than getting a good fake theremin sound. I'm not a synth programmer. I was just thinking about that. Like that was a much bigger challenge to get that to sound authentic. I almost would rather just go buy a theremin.
One of the few instruments I don't have. I know. You could have just called me. I just need a reason to purchase a theremin.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one on Reverb, Chief. Speaking of the era of theremin, right? Episode 7 here, or in this case, album 494, takes us to 1964, where we are visiting the album that is titled on Spotify, Presenting the Fabulous Ronettes, featuring Veronica. And this is the group The Ronettes, which, fun fact, I learned off air, sometimes there were 3, sometimes there were 4, and up to 5?
There are a number of Ronettes, but primarily it's the 3. They tried to do a bit of a revival in the mid 70s where some people came in, but really it's just made up of Veronica Bennett, Estelle Bennett, and Nedra Talley. So Veronica, the featured one, who goes by Ronnie, that hence the Ronettes.
Just like Ronnie says.
Wow.
Did I spoil it?
No, you did not. You did not. Not at all. But basically, they're family, right? 2 sisters and a cousin.
Got it.
And they started in the late 50s, and used to just practice like in their grandmother's basement.
I feel like this is a narrative we've heard before.
Yeah.
Not specifically on anything we've talked about, but this is common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where else would you go? I remember that video I loved so much like 10 years ago. Alan Stone live in his mother's living room.
Right.
With that killer version of, "You say that you care." And then boom, before you knew, that guy was on the road.
Yeah. That was the thing that their grandmother and their mother, but more their grandmother, really encouraged them to perform. They used to sing as a family. And so it was a musical family that was going on there. I actually believe, I actually didn't write this one down, but I heard fairly recently as I was doing some research that I believe that Veronica and Estelle's father was a jazz musician, a not successful jazz musician. So there was some trauma that came as a result of that, but music was in the house.
Yeah. I mean, that could explain some of the nasty licks she sings.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's inspiration in this album that does not sound like just pop music to me at times. We'll get to those tunes later.
Yeah. But before they were the Ronettes, they were the Darling Sisters.
Okay.
And they started playing like talent shows, and eventually they kind of snuck their way into the Apollo.
Okay. That little place?
Yeah, they were too young. I don't remember what age they were, but their mother and their grandmother helped them get all dolled up to look older, reminded them to make sure that they're holding a cigarette. They're teenagers, like 13, 14, 15, something like that. They're young.
Sneaking into a bar.
Yep. And I mean, the quote is that the grandmother actually used to like lock them in the basement to practice, but I don't think it was anything sketchy at that point in their life, but it was a big deal. And then eventually got them singing lessons.
Got it. So homegrown act that then gets it together, inspired by family around them, and grows into their shoes.
Or falls into their shoes.
Oh, okay. I like that better.
So in 1961, they accidentally got their big break by being mistaken for another act.
What?
Yeah, so they got mistaken for another act and were brought into this place called the Peppermint Lounge, where they were essentially just brought in as the background singers, and no one knew they were the wrong people.
And they were just like, shut up, let's do this.
Exactly. And that basically led to regular performances there.
As the wise Eminem once said, "You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance."
Yeah. And then after that, they get picked up by Murray the K. Are you familiar with Murray the K?
I'm not.
So Murray the K was a DJ who basically highlighted like hot acts and things like that. Enough of a legacy where I'm actually pretty positive that he's brought up in Reservoir Dogs. You know, Quentin Tarantino is a big music nerd.
Yeah, totally.
And talks about, I think it's in Reservoir Dogs. I forgot to look it up. And they actually performed on, he had like a tour of acts, and they performed on that tour for a bit. And the problem that they had was his whole deal was focusing on bands that were famous, and they were not famous.
Okay. So where do you put them?
Where do you put them? What you end up doing is they got a record deal, and they had a couple of early songs, but they were not commercially successful. They had a song like I Want a Boy, I'm on the Wagon. And those are just singles that they released.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't go anywhere. So they basically, they cold called Phil Spector. Famous producer, very well known for producing a lot of acts. You'll know him from The Righteous Brothers, You Lost That Love and Feeling. He's known for The Wall of Sound. He produced Ike and Tina Turner. The Long and Winding Road, or Let It Be. He came in after the Let It Be album by the Beatles and produced that. There's some stuff there. He produced My Sweet Lord by George Harrison. So he's
very well known.
Yep.
For more than just music too.
Yeah. So they cold called him and said, "Can we audition for you?" He's like, "All right, let's do it." So he came and auditioned, and apparently, as the story goes, he's like, "All right, I want to meet your mother."
All right.
So they go back, and I was watching this little documentary, and as Ronnie states, he goes to tell her mother, like, "I'm going to make them famous."
Okay. How old were Ronnie and the girls at this point, roughly?
I wish I wrote that down. I don't know. This is like 1963.
Okay. So right before this album drops.
Yep.
We will wiki this during the break. It'll be fun.
Yep.
Because
they're
feel
young.
like I need to know. I mean, if you look at the album cover and you listen to them sing, they are young.
They might not be adults yet, or around that age.
That would be my guess on first look here too.
So Phil Spector, big deal for them.
So under his wing, is this their first release that he produced?
This is their only album.
Oh, see, this is things I did not know.
Yeah, this is their only album. They have other songs other than songs on this album.
Let's say I saw a bunch of other content. I think I just made some assumptions. So this is their only album. It stands a whopping 12 songs strong at a mere 36 minutes.
Which is typical of that era.
I'd say. I mean, you're essentially calling it, just shy of 3-minute songs across the board, which is a pop song. Sans bridge.
Right? Things released on vinyl. You can only fit so much on two sides of an album.
Yep.
The medium did constrain certain things in the day, but yeah, so Ronnie really helped form this band.
Is that why she gets the feature name on it? Also, she kind of sings lead on everything.
Yeah, she was the hit. And when they finally got signed to, I can't remember, I don't think I wrote it down, but when they finally got signed to whatever label this is on, this is good pod.
2011 Spector Records. His
EMI.
Publisher.
EMI.
So EMI is, EMI Sony, yeah.
Yeah. So the initial deal, I believe, was this is Ronnie, and actually their mom said, no, it's a package deal. And he's like, all right.
See, this is good pod. This is drama. I want to learn about this. All right, so all or nothing, but it's clear who they're favoring.
Yeah, and they had, and they were successful. They toured with the Rolling Stones. Actually, the Rolling Stones opened for them.
What?
And then they toured with the Beatles. They did not open. They opened for the Beatles. Don't get me wrong, but other interesting facts here. I'm kind of hopping around in the timeline a little bit, but Ronnie became really good friends with Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
And actually, Jimi Hendrix became fairly smitten with her, it sounds like. I think he had a crush. That's the best he could come up with. And sang on one of his albums.
Whoa.
Yeah, so in his album Rainbow Bridge, which was released after he passed away,
Yeah.
they're featured on Earth Blues.
Okay. I mean, these are all things I had no idea.
Yeah, there's some
Existed.
really interesting stuff here, right? So Jimi Hendrix obviously was a big deal.
Yeah,
at
I'd
the time.
say.
There's some. I'm curious. Jimmy's got to be on this list.
Maybe more than once. Yeah,
Yeah, I like the Beatles were in awe of Jimi Hendrix.
sure.
There's conversations about Paul McCartney going to watch sitting in the audience with Eric Clapton.
Yeah, just jaw drop. No,
Right.
100%. I mean, we'll see Hendrix, in the top 50 albums, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But it's so funny when you listen to this era and the mingling. When every time I see some sort of piece of media where you get one of these artists speaking, they're always like, yeah, I was sitting at this lounge, and they'd rattle off like 6 famous, insane artists they were hanging out with that night, like doing blow with in the bathroom.
right.
It was so casual that you could tell me what was the one hotel that everybody was living in at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
But it was like all these insane artists were just like took over an entire hotel. And this sense of community, you don't see this now and day.
No, I mean, the last I've heard of it is the Seattle grunge movement.
Sure.
And they were all friends.
There you could actually find, Eddie Vedder and Dave Grohl in a room type of thing, whatever it might be. But this is so unreal to me. Yet, if you listen to the accounts, the same goes for the Valley out in California.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to the Mamas and Papas, and you listen to them talk about the influence and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, and how all of these insanely influential artists were all sitting in the same room. It makes you wonder where this collective is now. Now, mind you, we don't need the same room anymore. We can Zoom call it.
Right.
We can send Pro Tool sessions back and forth via the cloud and work on them simultaneously, essentially, if we want to. But that level of, I won't say collaboration, but comparison has to have colored the music somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And when we listen to the record, even though this record has its own thing, you can hear plenty of the influences that came before it. And I mean, they cover a song.
Sure.
Right.
And I mean, and Spector's sound
Yeah.
is, undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Undeniable. We'll get to talking about that in our next segment here after the break.
Wall of Flavor is having a 20% off sale, and I just got mine.
Ooh.
Wall of Flavor is a seasoning blend that layers on everything. One shake and boom! Your taste buds are completely surrounded. Some say it's a bit much, but subtlety is overrated. You can put it on your mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Put it on your durian.
Yeah.
Put it on your haggis. It tastes like a million layers of who knows what, each one overcompensating for the last, and somehow you're stuck in the middle.
Gee, that's swell.
Is that too much? Maybe, but once it's on, there's no getting it off. Wall of Flavor. Good luck tasting anything else.
Wall of flavor. 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 Wall of flavor.
So the producer, I'll start with that title, Phil Spector.
Phil Spector. So obviously he's very well known for his wall of sound, and he was one of the first people to really treat production as though it could be its own instrument.
Its own art, yeah.
Yeah.
The wall of sound, let's go into that specifically, because this will not be the last time in this series of pods that we talk about his production. He influenced a ton of artists, as mentioned, but the idea behind the wall of sound, as I understand it, was you put everybody in a big ass room and you stack your instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have like 3 drummers and like 6 guitars and the loudest tambourine for some reason you can possibly find. And everything's saturated in reverb. And it's this massive atmosphere, literal wall of sound, not a wall as in like a boring wall you can knock on, more like a tsunami kind of coming at you wall.
100%. And one of the things that I heard him mention is that with this technique, he could even make a crappy artist sound good.
Well, and for obvious reasons. I mean, this wall of sound, for the record, it smears stuff around. I'll show my cards early. It annoys me. It's not pleasant to listen to as a guy who like literally records music for a living. It's iconic for the era, though. I hear it and immediately it gives me a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always a bad feeling because there was an insane amount of talent that sang, in front of said wall. But in a way, it was like soap. It was like it could be treated like as the auto tune of its time.
Yeah,
as it's so easy to bury stuff in the wall, intentionally, one might say.
And there was a lot of talent behind the wall.
Oh, there had to have been. There's like 40 people.
Right. So his group that he used was called the Wrecking Crew. And he used a lot of the same artists in here. I'm not going to tip my hat onto something that I think you'll appreciate about the Wrecking Crew. I'll wait till we get into the musical content. But it was a big deal. And he was very hot at the time. And I he established, production as really an art form. So that was great. But we have to talk really about the elephant in the room when it comes to Phil Spector, because while he may have had a huge influence on people, not everything that comes from Phil Spector is amazing.
Unfortunately not.
No. So
domestically
and yeah,
civilian Spector,
not so great. So Ronnie and Phil married in 1968. They fell in love through this process of making the album and working together, but their relationship was definitely very abusive and controlling.
We've never seen that in music before. What are you talking about, Dan?
We have not. So he kept her isolated. He installed barbed wire around the house. She was not allowed to leave. He got an inflatable doll that looks like him that had to go in the car with her when she drove places. He would take away her shoes because he felt like she wouldn't leave barefoot.
Oh my gosh. Like just horrid abuse.
Yeah. So the house was surrounded by barbed wire, guard dogs. And he even stated that he had purchased and installed a golden coffin with a glass top in the basement, promising that he would kill her and display her corpse if she ever left him.
Ugh. She must have been terrified.
She was. And the way they finally divorced is she actually had to escape. So her mother, who was supporting her, saying, "You need to get out of here," essentially went, confronted him. He was drunk. Mother was hitting him. And they basically had to flee the property. Flee the property. Physically. And she was barefoot fleeing the house.
Shoe trick didn't work. Suck it, Spector.
Right. So that's one thing to discuss.
Yeah.
As influential as he was a broken person. Mm-hmm. There may have been some mental health things, some substance things going on there, but it doesn't excuse or absolve him of his behavior there.
Not at all.
So then it gets worse.
But hold on. It gets worse.
Hold on. So they get divorced. And he owns the publishing.
Yep. As I saw at the bottom of it says that, by the way, before EMI and Sony.
Right.
It is Phil Spector 2011 on it first.
So the Ronettes officially disbanded. They tried to get back together in the mid 70s. It didn't quite really work
Is
out.
that when Chaz Ronette joined the band?
Chip
Phillips,
I think. Yeah.
The
one man.
The Bronette,
Yeah,
the bro.
Yeah, the Bronette. So they eventually tried to sue him for $10 million in royalties.
Okay.
They end up getting 2.6 out of the deal. And so that was not great. But the Ronettes did okay for themselves. Obviously, they influenced a ton of people. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the last thing on Spector that's worth bringing up here, not that I'm not trying to make this super dire, but he was convicted of murder. So it not of anyone in the Ronettes, thankfully, but he did murder Lana Clarkson. And the story as it goes, in February 3rd, 2003, Lana Clarkson was found dead inside of his castle. And the story goes, apparently they drove to his place. They had been working at the House of Blues in Los Angeles. They were driven to his place in his limo. Later that morning, she was found dead in the mansion. Her body was found slumped in a chair with a single gunshot wound to her mouth and broken teeth scattered all over the carpet.
Oh, did they have to put that line in?
They did. And the story from Spector's driver said that he came out of the house holding the gun saying, "I think I killed someone." And what's crazy about this, apparently there weren't fingerprints on the murder weapon, which is why things went weird, is there was actually 2 trials to put him to prison. One went to mistrial, and then eventually he got convicted and sentenced and died in prison.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that I don't want this to be a downer episode. That's a terrible thing, but we can't just sweep over that.
And that is a disgrace. That's a good point.
Yeah, that was awesome. Because I don't want to be in the same boat as some other media outlets who, after he died, posted obituaries about him and glazing over some
Which
things.
ones, Dan?
Well, one of them is the New York Times
I've heard of them.
and Rolling Stone magazine.
Who? Rolling Stone magazine?
Rolling Stone magazine.
You mean they didn't condemn the murderer and assaultist Phil Spector?
I believe the way it was worded in his obituary is that Spector's legacy was marred by a murder conviction and that his life was upended after being sentenced.
Oopsie doopsie?
What an inconvenience.
Oh, I wonder how Lana feels about that.
Yeah.
Lana!
That was dark. They eventually, after social media pressure, changed the obituaries.
As they needed to?
Yeah.
Oh, brutal. Come on, guys. We're using your list here. We're rooting for you, Rolling Stone. What is this?
Yeah. So we had to bring that up, had to talk about that. But legacy of the Ronettes, even though their existence was not very long in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of artists who obsessed over them, like literally obsessed over them. We can talk about that later. Bruce Springsteen, Amy Winehouse, Brian Wilson,
I mean, the Brian Wilson alone. I mean,
that's deep.
Duffy wouldn't have her sound if not for,
Yeah.
It to me, what the Ronettes really spark is what every YouTube girl 10 years ago tried to sing.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Like, there was that whole postmodern jukebox era of singers who tried to do the Amy Winehouse thing, and rightfully so. Fantastic singer. But this whole loungy kind of pinup singer, even though the visual is different than what the Ronettes are putting off,
right,
that singing style will never go away. It's so classic.
Yeah.
It's iconic.
And you mentioned Amy Winehouse, and she was super influenced, by Ronnie specifically. Mentions it many times. They never actually met, and Ronnie was an Amy Winehouse fan too. after Amy Winehouse died, Ronnie and Amy's mother became friends.
Oh,
Yeah, that's kind of sweet. And Ronnie paid tribute to Amy by covering her song Back to Black,
good.
which I didn't get a chance to listen to. I just learned this little tidbit.
We're 100% listening to that after this.
Yeah, it's a great song
tune.
anyway.
Great tune, great album.
Yeah.
I look forward to doing that one. You know that's a top 500.
So I think that's all I want to say about Phil Spector. We'll probably talk about production, but let's put him
Back in jail.
back in the ground.
There we go. All right, so we are working with 12 songs here that fall roughly under the same umbrella. Ha ha ha. I say as we walk into our first song, which is Walking in the Rain.
I think this is a really interesting first track. It's one of their more popular songs.
Yeah, it's at 4.5 million listens on the good old Spitify. It opens with effects, which
Might be why they started it.
Yeah, literally a thunderstorm, right?
Mm-hmm. But to me, I don't dislike the song. It's fine, but it's plotting tempo, giving like the vibrancy that they bring forward. If you watch them live and everything, why would you open up with this mid-tempo thing? I don't dislike the song. It's just a weird way to open the.
My theory is because you had sound effects and because you had a lot of orchestral movement in it.
Sure.
I think they're showing off the wall more than they're showing off the Ronettes.
Yeah. What's the title of this album?
Presenting the Fabulous Ronettes featuring Veronica.
Yeah. And Veronica sounds fantastic on this song.
She sounds fantastic the entire album.
True.
Unfortunately, it's so consistently fantastic and almost it lacks dynamic a little bit for me across the board. It's tough. These songs kind of blur together in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
This one, like I said, most notably, you get to hear. I think I made this comment on Arcade Fire. Mm-hmm. That on the first song they show you their whole hand.
Right.
Here you go. We've seen it again. I'm not saying that they've shown you all their songwriting skill, but you immediately hear frontline female vocalists, backup woos and coos. Mm-hmm. You hear some orchestral stuff. You hear an incredibly familiar chord progression. It does visit the minor every now and then. You get some wall, and you have every bit of that massive room reverb thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
This is the playbook.
It is. I think the only thing missing is the woodblock.
Yeah, truth. And a little bit of energy here. I agree. If you wanted to make a boom, this is by no means a concept album, right?
No.
This is just, here's our tracks.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Right now, I think I'm going to subscribe and put one of my coins into the bucket of they had cool rain effects, and that's why we opened on it.
Fair enough.
Cool?
Yep.
All right. Moving on to number 2. Do I Love You? Sitting at just about 3.3 mil listens and weighing in at a fat 2 minutes and 56 seconds.
To me, this should be the opener.
Agreed entirely. That's my notes in my phone. And if nothing else, for tempo.
Right. And harmonically, nothing complicated. But right before they go into this bridge, she resolves at the major 7 before which is beautiful.
Indeed, but the progression is this great 4-chord progression that's so of its time, right? Mm-hmm. This is a definitive song on the album, and I think that it absolutely should have been the opener as well.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed here, so a little bit of connection. I like to make connections. So I was looking at the songwriters on these albums because there are many writers. Phil Spector is a writer on many of these things, but Vinnie Poncia has a writing credit on the song. Do you know who Vinnie Poncia is?
I do not.
So it's a very familiar name to me because my origin story in music. So Vinnie Poncia, where is that?
You just listened to metal records in your room and then went to Berkeley?
Well, a very specific band started me out. So where did I know that name? So Vinnie Poncia co-wrote Kiss's biggest hit, I Was Made for Loving You.
Okay.
Along with a few other songs after that. So I'm like, why do I know that name?
So Poncia is everywhere.
But what a weird gap.
This is why I miss tangible media.
Mm-hmm.
Because the act of sitting there, and in my era, pulling out the insert on the CD, or in yours, pulling open the vinyl and flipping it over and reading through notes, and whether or not you meant to see his name,
Right.
you saw it nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something about holding it. No one goes on here. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to find all of the liner notes on this album on a streaming service. I don't think they exist.
Right.
And so,
Oh, it was Wikipedia where I found the liner notes for it.
yeah, fantastic that we have that effort, but it's not even attached to the media anymore.
But I know Vinnie Poncia's name for reading the liner notes of
The Kiss album.
Dynasty. Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah.
By the way, Dan, did you know that the S's and the Kiss logo are just slightly off?
Yeah, I guess they're not quite parallel. And did you know when they performed in Germany, they had to convert their lightning bolt S's to Z's because they looked too much like Nazi SS?
Yeah, I always assumed that would be a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, who is worked very hard on our logo, has been filling me in on all these little intricacies. Kiss does have and like one of the more like recognizable logos.
Yeah.
Anything else on Do I Love You? I do love you, Dan.
I love you too, my friend.
We go to song number 3. So Young.
It's a nice little 6'8", teen angelish.
It is. Earth Angelish one
Earth
might
Angel,
even.
yeah, Earth Angel,
Earth
sorry,
Angel. Like we're
Yeah.
it's such a sock hop slow dance feel.
This is better than Earth Angel because I think Ronnie sounds particularly good on this one.
Yeah.
And we talked about the wall of sound. The thing I like about this one is I can actually hear the Ronettes.
Okay. So glad you said that. I couldn't help by my second listen to shed any like, okay, like I got rid of the vibe of the wall of sound, the production. I had listened to Ronnie kind of like vocalize all over everything. I'm thinking to myself, what are these Ronettes? A lot of the time, it feels like they're just singing a unison line, just oohing in the background, the same way like a bagpipe does. Like, and you have songs that have killer harmonies, like "Do I Love You" actually had some great harmonies. I failed to mention. This is one of the only tunes on the album where you can hear the Ronettes behind her. It feels like a band rather than a singer.
Yeah, and my only dig on this one is I wrote down, you can hear the harmonies and the backgrounds until a series of obnoxious, thunderous drum fills at the end.
And dude, drums on this wall of sound are a mess.
So you're going to love this, my friend. The Wrecking Crew. Some of the drummers in the Wrecking Crew. Hal Blaine.
Yep.
Okay. Jim Gordon.
Jim's there. Yep.
Jim Keltner. Earl Palmer. Joe Picaro. Not Jeff Picaro, but Joe Picaro. Like these are all real drummers.
Yeah.
But the drums are a mess on this album.
But that's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's just like I played a gig once at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. And before I played it, someone was like, you know, you could fit like 3 football fields if you like sit on its side. And we were playing for a bunch of high-end like power bankers around Christmas. There was like 100 of them. And we were like 100 feet from them, my band. And there were 6 of us. And when you're in a massive room like that, it doesn't matter what you do. It's going to sound horrid. There's nothing you can do. Like playing a drum set. Like the lady came up and she's like, can you guys like turn your effects off? We're like, there are no effects. Like drums, bass, guitar, keys, vocals. That's what we were running.
Yeah, I'm with you. But it's not just the sound, the acoustics, and the aesthetic. Those are some insane drum fills for what this song is.
Okay.
So who's producing them saying, hey man, just do a little drum solo at the end of this thing?
Yeah.
Especially given the caliber of drummers that these are. Like they had to be instructed to just go ham.
They wanted the noise. Bring the noise. Bring the funk.
This is a 6/8 sock hop song.
Yeah. No, as far as doo-wop music goes, no one's ever talking about the drum music, solos inside of it.
No.
You got to think. Carol Kay on the bass, probably?
Yep.
Of course. My girl. For those who haven't checked out that Wrecking Crew, is it a documentary? Or maybe a biopic? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
There's a piece of media on the Wrecking Crew out there. Do your own research.
Yep.
But oh my God. You want to talk about your favorite songs, the artists who played them that you've never heard of? There they are. It's unreal how much music these folks recorded.
Yeah,
and how little money they got paid for it.
It amazes me, the session musicians who have played on thousands of albums.
Not lying. Thousands.
Right. That no one has ever heard of.
Ugh, unreal.
Yep. All right. So Young?
Nah, we're good.
We're good?
All right, moving on. The best part of breaking up.
It's not that.
It's Folgers in your
Go ahead, finish it. Yeah. Good. So the wall of sound in this one does nothing for me in the chorus. It's cacophonous in the chorus on this one. It almost sounds like there's another band playing another song.
It sounds like someone's in practice space next to you.
Yeah.
And you're like listening through the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ever done that? And like someone's playing down the hallway from you? Back when we were in the music schools, that happened all the time. It's distracting.
Yeah. It's mostly in the chorus. The dynamic, there actually are dynamics in this song because in the verse, it actually all kind of goes away for like a split second and then comes back in. So there are dynamics, but when you get to the chorus, I'm like, I don't even know what's happening.
It's a shame though, because I think her vocal performance is one of my favorite vocal performances on the album. Her verses are very, very good.
Yeah. And actually I noted like her rhythm, like she's very rhythmic and precise with her rhythm, and singers aren't necessarily always known for that.
No, she kind of stings things. She Ronnie, that is, commands a microphone. And I always adore singers who do this. I love working with them because by nature, you and I are both rhythm section players.
Yeah.
And when you have someone who can really like dig their heel in, and kind of lead the band by attacking, certain entrances or leading them, or there's an art here where there's a lot of singers who are like, cool, I'll sing with the band. And there's some singers who go, I will lead the band.
Yeah. Cause her like the best part of like, it's on the beat.
It's driving.
And very staccato when it needs to be. And it's, really good performance.
Not a bad song. I agree with you. The choruses are an absolute sound mess.
Bridge to me feels pretty Beach Boysy.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
I mean, the bleed over, the further you get into this album, for me, you start to hear a lot of the elements that fell into that Beach Boys category.
Yep.
And you look at the connections once again, and Beach Boys are essentially at war with the Beatles to see who could do more acid albums.
Yeah.
Really, they were going back and forth, and you kind of have to appreciate the restraint on this end of the aisle.
Yeah.
It was like the girls weren't allowed to participate in the reindeer games here,
Well, the controlling stuff I mentioned earlier with Phil Spector started in the studio, where if Ronnie wanted to go get a Pepsi, now you stay here, Will.
Oh, God. Can you imagine?
Yeah. So while she was chalking that up, I was listening to her talk. She was chalking a lot of that up to like, he knows what he's doing. I'll just listen to him.
Sure. And
probably started innocently enough in that case. Maybe not from his perspective. From her perspective, I can see how she got trapped into it because he was this genius producer who could do all this stuff and figure all this stuff out. And
the access, it must be so hard to lose track of yourself. And I mean, when you start that young too, it's like was she even given the chance to get that backbone, right? It's no surprise that of all the people to break her out, it had to have been Mom.
Yeah.
No surprise.
Yep.
Right? Because she probably never would have gotten out of herself. Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. No more on that.
All right. Sorry.
Another ballad coming in at song number 5. I Wonder.
So weird thing for me, even though it doesn't sound like this, but there's a little essence to me that made me think of Runaway by Del Shannon.
Why can't I put my finger on this?
I've been walking in the rain.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. All right. Del Shannon. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Is it?
It doesn't. It sounds nothing like it, but maybe like rhythmically, there's a little bit.
I would
of
say
that.
the melody is not there.
There's a couple chordy things that come up there. We'll have to listen to it afterwards.
Chord progression is running. What do I have here? minor 6, 4, 1, 5. I mean, those minor 6 leadoffs create that kind of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense to me, actually. It could be progression similar.
Yeah, I made that note in the car and didn't have time to actually go and really. I listened to Runaway, and it's not the same song at all, but objectively a better song.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is there are times, though, where you can find these similarities and literally have none of the mechanical music aspects match.
Right.
This song does not strike me as anything I need to listen to again.
No, I stopped listening. Well, I listened to this album several times, but then when I made this connection,
that was worth note.
Yeah, I just listened to the other one.
All right, well, you move on and do one of the least listened to songs on the album. In fact, according to Spotify metrics, of course, the least at a mere 300,029 listens. What'd I say?
Well, Ray Charles did it better.
Yeah, and that's the kicker. I heard this one while walking my first time. As I almost always do. I'm almost always walking with Jonas, when I do this. And I thought to myself, I don't like this.
Well, it's a live performance.
Well, that the noise is one thing. The performance itself, once you've heard Ray own it,
right?
It's just really hard to hear anybody else do it with any conviction. And this isn't like it's a girl guy thing.
No.
It's not. It's just this song doesn't have a lot of like pork to run off of to begin with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna do it, there's one way to do it, which is put your whole heart and soul into it. It just didn't sell me.
Yeah, I think she actually sounded, of the recording quality, she sounded okay. You could hear her. The rest of the band, like, it's like, yeah, too much earwax or whatever.
Yeah,
you need to get a candle or something. But
and in the Ray version, I hate to compare it, but you have to. Like that, like ride cymbal belt. It's aggressive and in your face. This one just didn't fully commit.
Right. Yeah. I never asked you this. I'm going to ask you now. Did you ever listen to, in 2005, John Scofield released an album called What I'd Say, which is a tribute to Ray Charles?
No. I know a bunch of Scof, so like that's not a.
It's awesome.
My favorite cover he ever did. He covered What You See Is What You Get.
Okay.
God, that's a good cover.
Yeah.
That one's a groove. And I mean, John Scofield, in the musician's world, needs no introduction. I trust he did the Ray Charles anything.
Yeah.
Well,
most of it was instrumental. I believe he had Dr. John come in on.
Yeah, you can't do anything wrong with him. May he rest in peace.
Yep.
Yeah, with Ray, it's like no one's ever going to be like Ray Charles was an incredible singer, because he wasn't. But he had so much attitude in that Ray Charles-y type of barking, growly voice. Yeah. And then, of course, being an insane blind pianist.
Yes.
And most importantly,
insane as in his ability.
Oh yeah. No.
Since we were just talking about literally his
I have no disrespect for Ray Charles at all.
Yeah.
I love him, and I love Jamie Foxx for him. No, but this to me, unfortunately, once you've tasted the real thing, I don't want the Aldi version.
Right.
That's it.
Skip.
What
we're here for.
Yeah, as Justin Bieber would say, baby, baby, baby. Songs 7, 8, and 9 all are the Baby series.
The Baby trilogy.
But opening with the Baby everybody knows, and the metrics don't lie. 485 million listens. That's a 485-269-911. Oh my God. Be My Baby.
The song's a big deal.
And I'll tell you what, of all the songs on the album, it is still, and not because of the recognition, it's just one of the best songs on the album. Period. Might be the second best song on the album, in my personal opinion.
I agree. And it was super inspired. And in my lifetime, the song was popular. Well, this whole album outdates me or predates me, but the song was on the radio even still as I was growing up, but then brought back into focus with Dirty Dancing.
I was gonna say, Dirty Dancing gave it that nice little bump up, the same way that TikTok cranberry juice skateboarder gave Fleetwood Mac back Dreams.
Right. Or Stranger Things gave Metallica Master of Puppets again.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
It's nice to come back.
Or Running
into
Up that
fashion.
Hill. Kate Bush from Stranger Things.
That's right. Yep. You can't unhear these moments, and it's so cool to see when they pop back up. But I mean, "Be My Baby" has been the tune on this album since day one, right? I mean, this is the one that's most recognized by a long run.
People obsessed over this. The other thing, I hadn't really. It's kind of weird. I'm going to bring this up again because I brought this up, I believe, in the first episode. So the drum beat, which is a very basic drum beat, was definitely copied, inspired, but I didn't realize this until I was listening to this. I remember hearing this song, Just Like Honey by Jesus and Mary Chain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a song super, I don't know if do you know that song?
No.
It was closing credits in Lost in Translation songs. If you ever saw that movie, that's what comes in. But it's drenched in reverb as well. So it's a wall of sound ish
adjacent.
Inspired. Yeah. And there's other artists who, I mean, it's just a lot of reverb. Like Born to Run was by Bruce Springsteen. Apparently the production on that was inspired, and you can tell like the drums are like way too loud.
That's
in that.
pretty much all the Bruce recordings. Right. I listened to Dancing in the Dark again the other day and was like, God, this is a great song and just such a crap recording.
Yeah. But the person I would say most obsessed with this song is Brian Wilson.
Okay.
Did you read into that?
No, but it makes perfect sense. Say more.
There's a lot. I'm not going to go into all of the lot, but he considers this to be the best song that's ever been written. Became super obsessed with it to the point that his daughter, Carnie Wilson, claimed that
preferred Carrie.
Yeah. I'm like, why did I say that? I know Carnie Wilson. Yeah.
You want the better name to prevail.
Yeah. So his daughter, Carnie Wilson, claims that every day of her childhood began with her awakening to this song.
That's
a bit much.
Creepy.
That's a bit much. And then, the Beach Boys song, Don't Worry, Baby, very popular song, is a response to this song.
They used to do that, man.
Yeah.
Now all we get is the Kendrick Drake battle.
Right. There's another one I forgot to write down. Do I Love You has a response too.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember what that is, but
I this is the fun side topic music nerd stuff. One day we got to get that that It's Always Funny or Always Sunny meme with the red string board and you, and just like tie all these tunes together. That'd be a fun little seasonal play.
We'll have that when we're done. All that technology crap I'm doing.
Oh, dude, the tech will do it for us, won't you, tech? All right, so I mean, if you've never heard "Be My Baby," you must be living under a rock. Go listen to it, and you'll immediately hear how it's influenced a million things, from Beach Boys to Frankie Valli to Amy Winehouse and anything in between.
Yeah.
Moving on to "You Baby," song number 8. We've lost a few listens here. We went from 485 million down to 1.4 million.
For good reason.
I'd say so. This song's entirely forgettable.
Yeah, and it has this weird like stop and start thing at the end.
What is that? I have a note here. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my phone trying to find it.
I thought there was a problem. I thought like I've lost connection or something.
It's the remix. Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't stand out to me. You end up with I have the chord progression is the most adjustable part here. Yep. It's actually a progression that you see in a lot of pop music now. Chris Martin humps this one, the 1 minor 6 4 5.
Yep.
Very popular and in vogue, if you will. But is it because it sits behind one of the most timeless songs of all time? Maybe. Is it because it just simply fails to excite me? I'll also say 8 songs into this album, I am so tired of this coy dating narrative. Like,
yeah,
write a song about anything else. Write a song about giving a 2-star review to a Chinese restaurant. I don't care. Just stop talking about,
broken hearts and unrequited love, and
it's not even like bitch, you cheated on me. Everything is like, the pulling petals off a flower. Like, oh, just look me in the eye one more time,
the only one that isn't is the Ray Charles song.
And its song's horrid.
Right.
So that's what I say.
Moving on then.
All right, to the third baby. Baby, I love you. And thank God, much more tolerable.
Yeah, this song feels good.
It's my third favorite song on the album.
Yeah, and I have nostalgia just from the song. I knew the song already. I knew the Ramones version of this song.
Oh, Ramones did one?
Yeah.
Good on that.
Yeah. So when I'd forgotten about this song when it came out, I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, so I got excited for this one.
Didn't we talk about doing something on best covers? Was that you and I talking about
We
that?
might have talked
maybe
about it,
last week. Yeah. That'd be so cool. I want to listen to some of these.
So they have some additional background singers on this one.
Did the Bronette make his way in?
No. Sonny and Cher.
I've Got You, Babe?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Sonny and Cher singing backgrounds on this one.
That makes me really happy. I think I expressed last week that I'm a newfound fan of Cher.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I ever put any effort into liking Cher, but I did see a quick YouTube video on Reddit or some sort of video where on her show she would just rip off a scarf and show off some fabulous dress and then sing immediately. And her voice didn't sound like if you believe in love. And I was like, oh, this is actually pretty pleasant. Yay, Cher.
Yeah. She's got chops.
Yeah, no doubt. And if not, she has looks. So she had that going for her.
Yep.
So Sonny and Cher are singing backups on here.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That might explain the sudden jump up to almost 17 million listens as well.
Well, it's just objectively a better song.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. And the funny part is our chord progression barely changed.
It just feels good.
The tempo for sure. It just has a little more pep.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it's like an escape the wall sound. It just feels more
Cohesive.
yeah, and stable.
Yeah.
The thing about reverb, for those who don't indulge in the production arts, is if you think about reverb, think about yelling in your high school gymnasium versus yelling in your in your bedroom where there's like a bed and a bunch of stuff on the walls that absorbs the sound. It's really challenging as a musician to do anything accurately when there's a ton of reverb floating around. Too much can be a bad thing. A little bit's a great thing, a la singing in the shower, making yourself sound better.
Right.
That is 100% comes down to the notion of reverb or delay, right? You get too much, it just turns into a canyon. Everything's a mess. This song had one of the better balances production-wise on the album, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. And I mentioned Jesus and Mary Chain, and that song is drenched in reverb, and it works for that purpose. And I was just listening the other day to St. Vincent. So she has an album that came out just this year called, what's it called? We're All Born Screaming, I think is what it is.
Buy my custom guitar.
If you haven't
It's
spent some time
cool
with St.
looking
Vincent,
guitar.
yeah, All Born Screaming. I got it right. Which is a good album, but there's I'm positive it's not Wall of Sound influence, but there's definitely a lot of reverb on it. But
She doesn't shy away from any production, her song. She will do cool stuff.
Yep.
And she works with some killer producers too.
Yeah.
Like,
and she's a phenomenal guitar player. I don't know if you've ever seen.
no,
if you have any idea how
I'm
good she
I'm
is,
hip
but-
to her. I listen to a lot of WTMD.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just sort of funny. Since we're doing research on this and listening to this, and I was listening to St. Vincent, I'm like, wow, there's some stuff there. But the thing is even though there's a lot of reverb on that, everything else is also mixed. Everything in her production, of course, came out in 2024.
It's perfect,
more techniques, right? But everything's in its sonic space still.
No one's competing for sound, and not that Ronnie ever had to,
Right.
but there are songs where it's like you feel like the band's just cranking along behind her. She's doing her best to karaoke it out.
Yeah.
This is not one of those songs.
No. And you can hear the harmonies too.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of was it I Wonder? No, So Young.
So
sorry.
Young.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. it has that same kind of quality to it. Definitely a keeper.
Yep.
Definitely something you want to show. I'd put it on a short list for like if I had to do a playlist or hey Alexa, play me the radio type thing.
Yep.
Another 145er right there.
Yep, right down the middle.
Easy peasy.
These are intentional pop songs.
All of them.
Yeah.
And if you look at the latter 6 songs on the album, 2 minutes 40, 2 minutes 55, 2 minutes 51, 2 minutes 40, 2 minutes 42, 2 minutes 58. Nothing even comes close to breaching 3 minutes.
Right.
And so, I mean, it doesn't get much more pop than that. And I mean that in the sense that these songs are designed to get on your ears on the radio and get back out of your ears.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. How does it feel?
Irritating.
I mean, the stats would say that at a mere 366,000.
This song blows.
If I never hear this song again, I'm perfectly okay with that.
What is up with the woodblock?
It's piercing, first and foremost. Has no place in that song.
It's louder than the lead vocals in some point.
Absolutely. It's no fun to listen to. This got to me the worse than that trumpet effect got to me on the Boyz II Men album last week. It's like, oh, cool, a woodblock, and after a while, it's like a very bad version of like the Saturday Night Live, cowbell skit. It's just like, oh my god. I mean,
it's horrible.
How many more times can I beat up the production? Well, for those who haven't figured it out, 10 songs in, I don't like the Wall of Sound production style. I don't think it's great. I appreciate what it did for the time, but my god, the mixing. What were you guys thinking?
Yeah, there are moments where I think it works better, like in the pantheon of Wall of Sound. Like You Lost That Love and Feeling, which was also a Phil Spector jam.
Yeah, but that's Righteous Brothers, and it's subtle.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of reverb in that song, but...
Yeah, but when treated correctly.
Right.
Once again, you could take this back to, overbearing drum solos, Mm-hmm. There's things that work in a reverb chamber, and there's things that don't.
Yeah. Maybe one of the Wrecking Crew drummers couldn't make it, and the woodblock is to keep them in time.
Maybe it was the metronome. Yeah. But honestly, I had that thought and listened back. It's not even good playing on it. It's not remotely. If that's the metronome, I'm so afraid.
Yeah.
If that's the metronome, it's in the same class as whoever tuned this album, because none of this is in tune.
No.
And not even in like a Weezer ironic type of way, or unironic. An ironic type of way where like they're doing a thing for the sake of doing it. No. I
just wonder if they didn't tune it, or if it was the recording material and the tape never got to speed.
Yeah,
which is a thing that happened. For
totally.
Sure.
But I mean, they had access to the goods. You put 40 people in a room too and ask them, yeah, you all ready to tune? And they're like, putting down their joint, like, yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, Roxanne by the Police opens with the tape coming up to speed.
Sure.
And then, of course, Sting's sitting on the piano.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
You ever hear that?
Huh?
You ever hear the weird piano thing at the beginning of Roxanne?
Not off the top of my head, I can't.
They left it in, so Sting like stepped back, sat on the piano. It's in the recording, and he laughs. Like the laugh that's at the beginning of Roxanne is him like.
That's him having sat on the keys of a piano.
Yep. During the take.
That's not very respectful to the piano.
Yeah.
But it is Sting's ass after all. So.
There you go.
Okay. Let's close this thing up, man. When I Saw You, song 11.
Ronnie sounds amazing on this. This is another Earth Angel kind of.
It is. Phone it in, call it what it is.
Yeah.
It's a great doo-wop ballad.
It is. What makes me sad when I hear this, because the next song everyone's going to know, is that I really wish that Ronnie could have escaped, out of what ended up happening to her, so that we could have heard more music with more diversity. And what I mean is, we did hear some more music, because I don't know if you know this, but she did hit the charts in the 80s.
Under Ronnie Spector?
Yes, when she sang on Eddie Money's Take Me Home Tonight.
Just like Ronnie said.
She's the Be My Little Baby girl.
Be my little baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. Just be my darling. Oh. It's not a small part.
No, it's a major part in the song.
And Eddie Money, not a great singer. So she might have been the best singer on the track.
Completely. And
Though I will say his 2 Tickets to Paradise skit on the TV like 10 years ago was pretty funny.
That was pretty good. Jimi Hendrix, of course. She got some time there where Jimi Hendrix actually had maybe a bit of a crush on her. They got to be really good friends.
Yeah.
And he actually had her come in and perform on a song called Earth Blues, which was released on the album Rainbow Bridge, which came out after he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good tune. I hadn't really spent much time on that album. I love Jimi Hendrix. I don't think I ever spent much time. I knew the song when it came on, but it was not something that came to mind.
Rainbow Bridge. Is that what people always say? Like, oh, what happened to your dog? Oh, he went over the Rainbow Bridge today. Isn't that like people say? Isn't it like a euphemism for passing away?
It is. I don't know if that was the intention of that. I don't know a lot about that album.
Deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think. I mean, there's no question about her talent level. She's an ace. I mean, she sounds fantastic. With what she was given, and I wasn't there. Right. I know I sound very opinionated when talking about this production style, as I almost always do talking about production styles. I wasn't there to see what she had to go through, but there's no way she had a great monitor mix for any of this. There's no way she knew half the people playing these bands and could help command them or create a ton of camaraderie. There's no circumstance where she was very comfortable. Yet she still ends up putting out an album like this, singing her soul out.
Be My Baby, she came in after the core was done. She recorded after it. She didn't record live.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I wonder how many of these tunes she did that for.
I don't know. I just saw that on Be My Baby, but
that'd be interesting to know because
the track was recorded. She just came and sang her part.
Maybe that's it. Maybe they were all playing charts and then she just came in and karaoke'd over all these suckers.
That could be.
I wouldn't be surprised, but man, if that's the case, whoever mixed this stuff in post, you got to blame Spector a little bit. But I'm sure there's another hand or two or ear or two involved. Yeah. Some of these songs, they just did her no justice.
And I still think the album is called Featuring or Presenting the Fabulous Ronettes.
Yes.
This definitely features Veronica, right? Mm-hmm. Ronnie Spector. Doesn't feature the other two.
No, never. Not once.
When you watch them live, you hear a lot more Ronettes.
Yeah, that's something I failed to do this week, and I regret not looking up some live content. If nothing else, just like get the mood out of it, because you can.
The other thing,
take the sound that you hear on the album, and then you take the stories and the rumors and the gossip and the truths of the abuse, and it's hard to. I feel like I'm just like vouching for her, I want her to win, and I've given up on the idea of the Ronettes at this point.
Right.
Once again, this killer collaboration of musicians supporting her was underpaid and underappreciated until modern times.
Right.
And a murderer and abuser reaped all the benefits and then was still, given the head nod by a couple publications.
Right.
It feels bad, man.
It does. Steve Van Zandt, from E Street Band, Little Stevie.
Okay.
It said about Phil Spector, which was kind of interesting. He's like, what's fascinating about him is that he's definitely a case where the art is way better than the artist.
I mean, that exists.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to wait too long to hear about any given artist nowadays.
Right. And he wrote a lot of songs about love, but yet as a human being could never appropriately give it or find it. Right. Like it's I don't want any pity party for Phil Spector, but there's some tragedy there too.
Oh, of course.
When he started, his career started going down when he started behaving that way. No excuses, but you're all responsible for your own actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure from the research I did, there's speculation on mental illness and potentially some bipolar and things like that. But that's definitely in the background. So I'm not sure if that was just making excuses for why he was doing terrible things or if it was true diagnoses. But
I mean,
nobody's normal who's doing this.
Early 1960s. Oh, that's just Phil.
Right.
Like, can't you hear it?
Yeah.
I don't know it and I can hear it.
Yeah.
And,
he's just that way.
There was this weird idea, and there still is, by the way, in our culture of like, celebrated evil genius type look at Elon Musk, bro.
Right. Harvey Weinstein.
We're watching a supervillain be created in front of our eyes who owns all of the satellites.
Right.
And a lot of power.
Yeah.
And we're just like, yeah, sure. Just be racist on Twitter once more or whatever. They're just like, what? Like, so Spector, no one cared enough. They were like, oh, cool. Like, that's the guy who throws big parties at his castle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well,
One last one here.
indeed. Very surprised, by the way, at the Spotify listens on this
Because you know this song better?
because everybody knows this song.
So why do you know this song?
Oh wow, it's that's one of those. It's not like anybody plays it at weddings.
Right. So the song is Chapel of Love.
Yeah, it's chapel, and we it's in chapel. Yeah, but
Everybody knows this song.
it's been in it's been in some movies.
Mm-hmm.
Which one am I thinking of? What research do you know?
Well, I don't know if everyone knows this song because of this version, which is the real version, or the Beach Boys cover.
No, it's the girls. The girls sing this song in my head. Like if I was sitting, at the gates, the pearly gates, and had to answer the trivia questions.
Yep.
Who sings Chapel of Love? It's Ronettes, not Beach Boys. In my mind, that's the one I've always heard.
Right. But the Beach Boys have a lot more reach. So I don't know. I mean, I know this song just intrinsically like I know Happy Birthday.
Yeah, this is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but no one sang it to me as a kid.
Right.
Why do we know this song? Listener, we want to hear from you, actually. How do you know this song? What does this song scream at you? I work like a dozen to 15 weddings a year in various outputs, DJ and band and ministry. I've never once heard it in a wedding in my entire career. So take that out.
Right.
I can't think of a piece of media that plays this song. Like, it's not like it was in like The Hangover or 27 dresses or 10 things. I'm trying to think about where would this song come in. Why do we know this song, Daniel?
It's ambient. It's everything. That's why it's so shocking that it's only 1.4 million.
And the last song in the album to boot.
Yeah.
Talk about placement.
Yeah. It's a catchy song. Production's not terrible.
Is it theirs? Did they write it? Or
I didn't look that close.
yeah, but say this is worth a look while I ramble for a
go
second.
ahead and ramble.
Because as it goes for iconic songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, ready? I'm going to name a couple iconic songs. Tell me the artist. Ready? Puff the Magic Dragon.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
That's right. Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, Queen.
There we go. If You Want to Be My Lover. Or Wanna Be.
Oh, why can't I remember?
There's 5 of them.
What's that?
Cumin, ginger, garlic, Spice Girls.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was saying, in the realm of iconic songs,
Yep.
if you asked me before this challenge, who sang Chapel of Love, I couldn't even tell you it was Ronettes.
Right.
This is how buried this song is, yet somehow we all know this melody. Da, 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 right?
Yep.
All right, what do you got?
So this song, where the heck did it go? I just had it. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Internet problems. This song is written Phil Spector. Yeah,
It's just theirs.
It's just them. Yep.
Oh
Just their
my
song.
God. Right now, more than ever, I wish we had whatever clearance we needed to just blast a song,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, so
onto the
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, Phil Spector, Barry Mann, and Ellie Greenwich.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yep.
and at 1.4 million listens, that's like that's essentially what most of the songs on this album have.
Right.
Though I would say it's, if not the second most popular, the most popular song on the album. You look dumbfounded.
Yeah, I'm digging because I didn't question why I knew the song. I just knew it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just kind of looking a little bit here, but actually the definitive version of Chapel of was actually by the Dixie Cups.
What is a Dixie Cup?
I have no idea about the Dixie Cups.
Now we must look. Dixie Cups. The Dixie Cups artist. Boom. They look just like the Ronettes.
And look how many plays they have.
Dixie Cups Chapel of Love have a sweet 70 million.
That's why we know that.
That's why we know the song.
It's not from 1.4 by the Ronettes.
And then they have songs we have never heard of after that.
You know Iko.
Iko, I know. Yeah. Truth.
Yep.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna get you yet at 185,000 listens.
Right.
But they look just like the Ronettes. Look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Dixie Cups, you copycats. So you got to wonder.
No, actually, yeah. So yes, they released this in 1964 as well. So I think it was.
Oh, is this one of those circumstances like what happened with Wagon Wheel?
Yeah, I think
where
so.
Florida Georgia Line and Darius Rucker dropped them at the same time.
Yeah, so the group hit the top of the charts in 1964 with Chapel of Love, a song that Phil Spector had originally written for the Ronettes.
And then
And then they-
gave it over to the younger Ronettes.
Right.
The Dixie Cups. Well, there you go. You got to see this live on stage, ladies and gentlemen.
Live learning.
I know. But at the end of the day, I mean, this song's iconic, as we've said multiple times. But that's, this happens all the time. And I think as we roll through a lot of the great soul and Motown records specifically that are going to be on this list, time and time again, we're going to see things that are covered.
Right.
Or passed around, like Tennessee Whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Stapleton didn't write that song. Everybody and their mom has covered that song. If you knew anything about the Delta Blues, right?
Right.
I mean, the first time I heard that song was played by this guy who I consider like my church key. His name's Warner Williams. He's passed away, but he's this old grumpy man who wasn't allowed to drink, but would still try and sneak drinks anyway in the bar. And he'd come and play these open mics. Same with my open mics I met my wife at 15 years ago. And he'd be just finger picking away on this old broken Gill guitar in his corner singing Blueberry Hill. Hey, bartender, there's a big bug in my beer.
Yeah.
And then he'd roll into Tennessee Whiskey and played the crap out of that song. Long before Bro Country Radio had ever heard this.
Huh.
So we're going to stumble over some more and more songs like Tennessee Whiskey, like Chapel of Love.
Yeah. I might need to listen to their version after this.
I think we will indeed. All right. Well, let's get down to the brass tacks here because we gave a lot of talk to a little bit of album.
Yep.
Daniel, would you hit it?
No thanks.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would never turn some of these songs off. Might even turn some of them up, but I don't think I'm going to seek it necessarily.
3 issues for me.
Yeah.
No. 2 issues and a compliment.
Yeah.
Ronnie can do no wrong. She sounds fantastic.
Correct.
That is the only reason I'm listening to this. I get so bored of this content. Give me 3. Give me 4. Don't give me 12 of the same sappy love song.
Yeah.
Just can't do it. And this is, by the way, fully part of me being in my age and growing up with the access that I have.
Right.
When you have such more phenomenal music, I totally understand that there was a record industry machine kicking the same 20 albums, even if that, bazooka style into these poor kids' heads, and it's all they had access to.
Right.
And would I take music over no music any day of the week?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't have to. I'm lucky enough to have a massive amount of music in my hands, and we're talking about the premise of a show where we're looking at 500 albums. The implication is that they're pulled from an insanely large pool, which they are. So, no thank you. 2, reiterate, don't like Spector's Wall of Sound. The production style annoys me. I don't need access to say that. It's jumbled. It's a mess. It buries all of the instruments. I can't imagine sitting down and trying to enjoy isolating any one instrument in this mix, which is what brought me into music in the first place.
Yeah.
So redeeming fact quality is Ronnie, and I suppose the girls when you can hear them.
Yeah. I'm with you. In this era and style of music, I go through phases, and I actually created a playlist for my father-in-law at his birthday, and my wife asked me if I could make a playlist for the birthday party, and this is the stuff he listens to, this era of music.
Yep.
Like Beach Boys is one of his favorite.
Sure.
And that sort of stuff. And Ronettes made that playlist.
Sure.
And I've listened to some of that playlist. I went a little bit nuts. It was 8 hours of music. But,
Of course.
but
Y'all
because
ever
it's
been to
so-
Dan's parties?
Right.
You need it.
Right. And so it's so easy to do on an app like Spotify, or where you can just like, oh, yep, that's
It'll
right,
suggest the next 20 to you. Yeah.
right. Like, yeah, these are all good. I'm with you. So, will I listen to the Ronettes ever again? Of course I will. Will I listen to this album? Would I put this, on my mantle? No, I will not.
Remember, my test is would I buy the vinyl?
Yep.
No, I will not.
No.
In the realm of doo-wop, there's just better options for
Yep.
me. All right. Well, fun talk, sad stories.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool to get a little crazy today on the history, and I appreciate you carrying all that research. I'm sure we didn't scrape, the tip of the iceberg on some of the crazy stories that are out there and deep dives and cases. So with that said, we'd love to hear more about, what we may have missed, your opinions on some of our more harsh opinions. You can catch us at
Backwards Beats Podcast.
and our email.
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com.
All right. What's next on our album list here, Dan?
Next week, we have album 493, which is the album Here, My Dear by Marvin Gaye.
An American national treasure. This should be good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Carl Carter, Fan Steel,
I'm Dan Woodard.
and we look forward to speaking with you next week.
Love you.
That was a show about Phil Spector and the Ronettes' lonely album. Spector sucks, Ronnie rules, but we won't buy this music.
Backwards Beats Podcast is a Tuna-Wood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Beats Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.